Today we are making coffee clay. I saw this recipe on Pinterest and it tweaked my interest, and I thought I am going to try to make this, and I thought I would bring you guys along to see how I make out with this recipe. Now the first thing you're going to do is add 1 cup of flour, and I have some coffee grinds. This is just from my coffee this morning, and of course I don't do anything without making a mess, but you're going to need 1 cup of the coffee, and I didn't even let it dry because we're going to add water into it anyways, so we're going to incorporate that into the flour. I have so many different clay recipes on my channel here, but this is one that I've never tried. When it's dry, it's supposed to have a real earthy look, almost like stone pottery, and I love that look. So the next thing I have is a 1/4 cup of sand, and we're just going to incorporate that into the flour and the coffee grinds. And then we're going to incorporate a 1/2 cup of salt. Now I only had some coarse salt, but I think that's fine because I think it's going to give it a bit more texture. You can use any type of salt. Now this recipe that I'm using, it didn't call for a specific amount of water. It just said to add until it had a clay-like consistency. So I'm just adding it slowly and incorporating it all together until I get the desired texture. Now I think that looks really good. I got a piece of parchment paper, and I'm just gonna put that clay on the parchment paper and knead it a little bit, make sure it's incorporated really well. I really love the rustic look of it, and I'm crossing my fingers that this is gonna work. I'm going to take half of this and use it with my first project. I'm going to roll it out with my rolling pin. I've got 2 slats from Shutters, and I love this to get your clay all the same width. I just put it beside and then roll it out, and it makes it nice and even. And then I just got a cookie cutter, and I'm just going to cut out some shapes and then set these aside and let them dry, and we'll see how it dries. Now I'm finding right off the bat it doesn't hold its shape well, so you don't want to move it around very much. I'm just really gently removing that extra clay in between. I'm going to turn these into little ornaments, so I'm using a little wooden skewer, and I'm just putting a hole in the top of each of these ornaments. Now these are ready to set aside and let them dry. I'm going to try to make a little bowl. Again, I'm going to roll it out, and I'm using those slats so I have my clay all of the same width. I'm going to take some cling wrap, and I'm going to put it on the outside of this little glass dish that I have, and I'm going to use it as a mold. And I'm going to tuck the saran wrap into the inside of that little dish. We want to make sure that it's nice and smooth, because if it's not, it's going to transfer onto the clay. Pick up the clay, and then we're going to shape it around the outside of that little glass dish. And then I'm going to cut away that extra clay so we have a little nice edge around it. I'm going to do one more project, and then we can compare them all at the end and see how it all turns out. I'm going to again roll out that clay using those slats from the Shutter so our clay is even all the way across. And then I've got a little dish, and instead of putting it on the outside, I'm going to put the clay on the inside. I'm going to use the bowl, press it in to the clay, remove the extra. And again, I'm finding this clay, you can't move it very much. It really loses its shape. So I'm now going to put the saran wrap on the inside of the bowl, and then really carefully lift that clay and put it on the inside. I want the edge of this little trinket dish to have a waved edge. So I'm just going to, once I have it placed in the bowl, just kind of pinch it so it's got that waved exterior. Set it aside, let it dry completely. Now any clay that we have left over, it says that you can put it in a zippy bag, get all the air out of it, store it in your fridge, and it'll last for a few weeks. So here's my take. This took a long time to dry. This was 3 days, and I still don't think it's completely dry. So I'm gonna leave it a little bit longer before I paint it, but it does look really cool and rustic, and it has that stone ceramic look. This one was a fail, and I know exactly what I did wrong. It was just rolled too thin, and it needs to be quite thick if you're going to mold it around a project. I also think if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to add some PVA glue to the recipe. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever made a recipe like this and whether you added any PVA glue or maybe even some Mod Podge might work really well just to hold it together better. Now this took a really long time to dry. I was 3 days in and I still found that it probably wasn't completely dry. So I gave it another day. Painted it with some acrylic paint, and I just really love actually the rustic feel of it. It's a really fun clay to make, and especially if you want to do some with your kids. If you're looking for a real durable clay, I'm not quite sure if this is the one for you, especially if you're going to be reselling or gifting your projects. But if you want a fun clay to make with your kids or just to play around with yourself, this is a go-to recipe. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we're going to see you in the next video.